two men trudge through the deep snow of the Ural Mountains. In the distance, Mount Otorten. It's February in the northern Urals. The wind is sharp, the sky heavy with dark clouds, the landscape cold and desolate. These men are students from the Ural Polytechnic Institute. They are part of a search team, looking for their friends. The group vanished 10 days ago during a hiking expedition. Suddenly, one of the searchers spots a dark shape in the snow. As they get closer, it becomes clear. It's a tent. Torn, half-buried, abandoned. Inside, no one. Just scattered belongings. Boots, blankets, journals, cameras, but no people. The men call out, no answer. Soon after, the frozen bodies of the missing hikers begin to appear. One by one. 9 people, all dead. Some nearly naked in the snow. Others with horrifying injuries, broken ribs, crushed skulls, missing eyes, and even a missing tongue. What happened to the Dyatlov group? Why did 9 experienced hikers flee their tent in the dead of night, barely dressed, into the freezing wilderness? The Dyatlov Pass mystery is one of the most haunting, unsolved cases in modern Russian history. Over the years, it has become more than a tragic hiking accident. It is now a myth, a riddle made of scattered clues, strange injuries, classified documents, and a long list of theories. Some rational, others less so. From secret Soviet weapon tests to UFOs, from escaped criminals to indigenous legends, radiation, avalanches, military cover-ups, hallucinations, infrasound, fireballs in the sky. Even now, more than 60 years later, there are more questions than answers. This is not just a story about 9 people who died on a mountain. It's a story about fear, mystery, and silence. This is the tragedy of the Dyatlov Pass. January 23, 1959. Inside a dorm room at the Ural Polytechnic Institute, 10 students and graduates prepare for an expedition into the Ural Mountains. Backpacks lie open, gear is being packed, food, medical supplies, warm clothes. Their goal, to complete a demanding ski route that would qualify them for the highest level of hiking certification in the Soviet Union, Category 3. The route would take them over 300 kilometers across one of the most remote and brutal regions of the northern Urals. At the center of it all is Igor Dyatlov. He's 23 years old, strong, disciplined, technically gifted, a student of radio engineering and a veteran of over 10 expeditions, many of which he led himself. To his peers, he's the ideal group leader, calm, serious, respected. Some said he could be demanding, but no one doubted his experience or skill. He even built his own shortwave radio receiver, despite it being technically illegal at the time. Joining him are 8 others, Zinaida Kolmogorova and Lyudmila Dubinina, both young, experienced hikers. Dubinina, only 20, is the youngest of the group. Despite her age, she's already completed several difficult treks. Yuri Yudin, 21, quiet and reserved. He has chronic back and joint pain, but refuses to let that stop him. Yuri Doroshenko, brave and energetic. In a previous expedition, he once chased off a bear, with nothing but a hammer. Yuri Krivonashenko, the group's joker and musician, recently graduated, now working at a restricted construction site. He once helped clean up after one of the Soviet Union's first major nuclear accidents, the 1957 Kishtim disaster. Alexander Kolovatov, calm and methodical, a serious student who kept a private journal and smoked an old-fashioned pipe. Rustem Slobodin, athletic, independent, son of a university professor, which in the USSR implied status, a graduate and now an engineer. Nikolai Thibault Brignol. His name sounds French because it is. His ancestors emigrated from France to Imperial Russia generations ago. A recent graduate, already working as an engineer. On January 25th, the 9 hikers board a train, but at the last minute, they're joined by a 10th person, Semyon Zolotaryov. He's 37, nearly twice the age of the others, a veteran, a seasoned outdoorsman, and a certified instructor at a nearby tourist base. Originally, he was set to go on a different expedition, but after a scheduling conflict, he requested to join Dyatlov's group. Despite his mysterious demeanor, the tattoos, the habit of asking people to call him Sasha, and stories from his military past, Dyatlov agreed. His experience would be an asset. Some theorists would later focus on Zolotaryov as a possible key figure in the group's fate. But for now, he was just another member of a 10-person hiking team headed into the mountains. They had food, they had maps, they had cameras, journals, and plans. What could possibly go wrong? January 26, 1959. After a long journey by train and truck, the group reaches a small village near the edge of the Siberian wilderness, the settlement of the 41st quarter near the town of Ivdel. Beyond this point, there are no roads, no towns, just endless snow and forest. This is the last trace of civilization. The region is known for its harsh winters and its past. In the 1930s, this area was home to part of the infamous Gulag labor camp system. Locals here include former prisoners and guards, people who had seen more than they ever spoke about. Still, the hikers were in good spirits. They sang songs, joked, and documented their journey with photographs and diary entries. One small incident occurred when they were denied overnight shelter at a train station. One of the hikers, Yuri Krivonishenko, made a show of it, pretending to be a beggar and singing songs for spare change. It was a harmless prank, but it ended with him spending the night in a police station. A few days later, the group reached the remote village of Vijay, the last settlement before the mountains. And there, something happened that would later become a crucial twist in this story. Yuri Yudin, the hiker with chronic health issues, had been feeling pain in his legs and back for days. On January 28th, he made the difficult decision to turn back. He said goodbye to his friends, not knowing that he would be the last person to see them alive. The remaining 9 hikers continued. From this point forward, there would be no more witnesses, no more photographs from outside sources. Only the group's own diaries and camera rolls, recovered later, would shed light on what happened next. Their plan was to reach Mount Otorten, a remote peak in the northern Urals. Then, they would loop back to Vijay by February 12th and send a telegram to confirm their safe return. Before leaving, Dyatlov asked Yudin to pass a message to the sports club, warning that the group might be a few days late due to bad weather, but that message was never delivered. February 12th comes and goes. No message, no telegram. At the Ural Polytechnic Institute, no one seems alarmed at first. Delays in winter expeditions are common. Snowstorms, detours, injuries, these things happen. Even Yuri Yudin, back in town, is surprised the group hasn't returned, but he doesn't raise the alarm. He had never told the sports club about Dyatlov's warning of a possible delay, and now he carries that mistake with growing unease. By February 16th, students start returning from their own expeditions, but Dyatlov's group is still missing. Concerned family members begin to call the university. Zenaida's sister, Rustem Slobodin's father, relatives of Dubinina and Kolovatov. Their questions are met with vague reassurances. Delays are normal. The group will return soon. They don't. Finally, on February 20th, the university contacts Vijay. No one there has seen the hikers. It's now official. The Dyatlov group is missing. A formal search is launched. The first problem is simple and terrifying. No one knows their exact route. There should have been a detailed plan filed with the university sports club. There wasn't. It takes time to reconstruct their intended path, relying on scraps of information passed to friends before the group departed. At first, volunteers take to the skies. A small biplane, the Antonov AN-2, flies over the mountains, scanning the snow for signs of life. Tourist groups, instructors, and even local indigenous Mansi hunters join the search on foot. For days, nothing. No footprints, no tents, no equipment. Then, on February 25th, there's a breakthrough. A team of student volunteers, led by Boris Slobtsov, spots faint ski tracks near the Auspia River Valley. They follow the trail. It leads to an abandoned campsite. The area looks like it was used recently, but no one is there. The next day, February 26th, they climb a ridge between Mount Kolatsiakl and a nearby peak. One of the searchers spots something in the snow, a dark object. As they get closer, their hearts begin to race. It's a tent. The tent is collapsed, half buried in snow. Near the entrance, a hiking pole, an ice axe, and Dyatlov's parka. The tent fabric is torn, long, deep cuts in the canvas. At first, no one thinks much of it. Inside, cameras, journals, food, clothing, but no people. The scene looks abandoned, but not ransacked. Even valuables, like a flask of alcohol and a box of money, are untouched. Then, someone notices something chilling. The tent was cut from the inside. Whoever was inside tried to escape, fast. Even more disturbing, most of the hikers' winter clothes and boots are still inside. Whatever happened, they ran into the freezing night without protection. The searchers fan out, hoping to find survivors nearby. Instead, they begin finding bodies. Just 500 meters downhill from the ruined tent, under a large cedar tree, the searchers find the first two bodies, Yuri Doroshenko and Yuri Krivonashenko. They are barefoot, wearing only underwear, shirts, and light clothing, in temperatures below minus 30 degrees Celsius. Their hands are raw and torn, as if they had been desperately clawing at the bark. There's evidence of a small fire. Nearby, broken branches 6 meters high suggest someone had climbed the tree, perhaps to look for the tent or to escape something. The next day, searchers find Igor Dyatlov's body. He is lying face up in the snow, his fists clenched, one hand pressed against his chest. He is wearing more than the others, but still not enough to survive the cold. His watch had stopped at 5:31 a.m. Not far away lies Zenaida Kolmogorova, face down in the snow. It looks like she had tried to return to the tent. The position of her body suggests determination, or desperation. Then comes Rustem Slobodin, found buried under 20 centimeters of snow. He had a fractured skull. The official report would call it non-lethal. But why did it happen? There were no other wounds, no signs of a fight, and no one else around. With 5 bodies recovered, the question shifts from where are they to what happened to them. Searchers return to the tent site again and again, looking for clues. Investigators from the city of Sverdlovsk are called in, and now the KGB is quietly watching. The remaining 4 members of the group are still missing. Weeks pass. Only in May, when the snow begins to melt, are the others finally found. In a ravine, 75 meters from the cedar tree, partially buried in snow and water, lie the final 4: Dubinina, Zolotaryov, Kolovatov, and Thibaut Brignol, and their injuries are far more disturbing. The ravine where the final 4 were found was different. Unlike the open snowfield where the others lay, this area was sheltered and deeper. 3 of the 4 bodies were better dressed. They had taken clothes from the others, a jacket here, a pair of pants there. This suggests they survived longer, but their injuries were extreme. Lyudmila Dubinina had fractured ribs on both sides of her chest, with such force that her heart and lungs had been crushed. Her eyes were missing. So was her tongue. And yet, there were no external wounds, no cuts, no bruises around the ribcage, as if the force had come from within. Semyon Zolotaryov, the oldest member of the group, also had crushed ribs. 5 of them with the same pattern. No soft tissue damage. He was found with a notebook in his hand, but the pages were blank. Thibaut Brignol, the young engineer, had suffered a massive skull fracture, wide and deep, as if he had been struck by a car. Again, no bruising, no external trauma. Kolovatov had a twisted neck and missing eyebrows. His cause of death was listed as hypothermia, but nothing about this scene seemed normal. And yet, the official investigation concluded there were no injuries that could have been caused by another person. The report claimed the hikers died from a compelling natural force. But what kind of force crushes ribs without breaking the skin? What kind of accident tears out a tongue and leaves no signs of struggle? Even stranger, traces of radiation were found on some of the hikers' clothing. Investigators tried to dismiss it, but the detail remained unexplained. And then there was the final photograph, found on one of the cameras. It showed a blurry image of lights in the night sky. To some, it was just a misfire. To others, it was proof of something more. The official investigation into the Dyatlov tragedy began in February 1959. It was led by Lev Ivanov, a young and relatively inexperienced criminal prosecutor from Sverdlovsk. At first, his team approached the case like any other, gathering witness testimonies, examining the bodies, interviewing friends and family. But soon, things started to feel off. First, the KGB began showing up, quietly. Then, certain files were marked classified. Military officers visited the morgue. Some of the case photos went missing, and the tone of the investigation changed. The hikers' diaries, recovered from the tent, were kept from the families. Autopsy details were vague. When pressed about the severe injuries, investigators used clinical language like concussion or compressive trauma, without explanations. When asked why some clothes showed traces of radioactivity, they gave no clear answer. Meanwhile, rumors began to spread. Local Mansi tribespeople were questioned, then quickly cleared. Some whispered that the hikers had been mistaken for fugitives. Others suggested military tests gone wrong. Parachute mines, sonic weapons, or missiles. Ivanov later admitted, long after the case was closed, that he had been pressured to avoid anything that implicated the military. One of the most chilling findings was omitted from the official summary. Several of the hikers had signs of high radiation, yet no source was identified, and the camera film from Zolotaryov and Krivonyshenko was never fully released. By May, just 3 months after the search began, the investigation was shut down. The final conclusion? The hikers died as a result of an unknown compelling force, which they were unable to overcome. No explanation, no suspects, no responsibility. The files were shelved, the case was closed. But for the families, and for Yuri Yudin, the only survivor, nothing was settled. After the case was closed, the questions didn't stop. They only multiplied. How could 9 experienced hikers flee into sub-zero temperatures, barefoot, half-dressed, without leaving signs of a fight or panic? Why were some of them horrifically injured while others died simply from the cold? And what was this unknown compelling force mentioned in the official report? The avalanche theory. The most accepted explanation for years was an avalanche. According to this version, snow began sliding onto the tent during the night, forcing the group to cut their way out and escape. But this theory has problems. First, the slope where the tent was found is too shallow for a natural avalanche. Second, the tent was still partially standing, with items left neatly inside. Third, experienced hikers like Dyatlov would have known how to recognize avalanche zones. And finally, the type of injuries some hikers sustained don't match avalanche trauma. If snow crushed Dubinina's ribs, why was there no external damage? Military tests. Another theory, secret military testing. The Ural Mountains were known for missile and weapon experiments. Some suggest the group stumbled into a classified test zone, possibly exposed to parachute mines which explode mid-air with enormous shockwaves. This could explain the massive internal injuries without outer wounds. It could explain the radioactivity on some clothing, and even the orange tint observed on the bodies during funerals, possibly due to chemical exposure. But there's no official record of testing in that area at the time, and if the military was involved, they weren't talking. UFOs and fireballs. In the weeks following the tragedy, witnesses reported strange lights in the sky, near the pass. Glowing orbs, fast-moving fireballs. Some believe the group may have witnessed something they shouldn't have, or that an unknown force caused them to panic and flee. There's a famous photo from one of the recovered cameras, a blurred light in the night. But skeptics say it's just an accidental exposure. Infrasound 1 modern theory involves infrasound, low-frequency vibrations caused by wind interacting with mountain slopes. In theory, infrasound can cause anxiety, panic, or even hallucinations. Perhaps this drove the hikers to flee the tent in confusion. It's a compelling idea, but doesn't explain the physical trauma or the organized behavior of the group once outside. Murder? Some have suggested an internal conflict, that the group fought among themselves. But autopsies showed no defensive wounds, no bruises on fists, and no signs of struggle. If someone killed them, it wasn't one of their own, and so the mystery remains. Each theory explains something, but none explain everything. The official case was closed in 1959, but for the families of the 9 hikers, the questions never ended. At the funerals, some parents noticed strange things. Zenaida's skin looked oddly darkened. Rustam's skull had a dent, more severe than the autopsy claimed. Dubinina's body was missing her tongue, yet no one explained how or why. Officials said little. The press stayed silent. And soon, the Dyatlov tragedy faded from public view, buried under decades of Cold War secrecy. But one person could never let go. Yuri Yudin, the 10th hiker, the one who turned back. He spent the rest of his life searching for answers. He visited the families. He reread the case files. He gave interviews to journalists, filmmakers, investigators. And each time he was asked what he thought happened, his answer changed, slightly, as new theories emerged. But one thing never changed. Had I not gotten sick, he said, I would have died with them. In the decades that followed, new investigations were opened and closed again and again. In 2019, Russian authorities re-examined the case, eventually concluding that an avalanche was the cause. But few found that satisfying. Even today, in the snowy vastness of the Urals, hikers still visit the pass. Locals call the area Kolat Shakal, the Mountain of the Dead. A memorial stands near the site. 9 names, 9 lives, and one of the coldest, strangest mysteries in modern history. What really happened on that mountain? Was it nature? Was it human? Or was it something we still don't understand? Maybe the truth lies beneath the snow. Waiting, maybe it always will.